Coming to paperback and e-readers this February, Isis, Samurai Goddess. The goddess next door takes on kung fu killers in this action-packed martial arts Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Samurai Goddess in paperback and e-readers this February. There's been a lot of buzz about the new CW show Riverdale in the comic book world for the last couple of months. And after taking a look at the show, I can honestly see why there is so much buzz regarding this show. Because when it comes down to this show, it does a very good job of adapting the source material and making it fresh for the 21st century. Because when it comes down to the characters of Archie Comics, they are some of the toughest characters to adapt. When we think of Archie Comics characters, we think of fun, lighthearted teenagers. But in the show Riverdale, we get to see these characters stay true to the spirit of who they are while they were adapted for a darker, more realistic world. And that's one of the great things about Riverdale is that it is an adaptation and it pretty much is telling its own story while staying true to the spirit of who these characters are and what they are all about. Now, this Riverdale is, again, a lot darker than what your standard Archie Comics fare is. If you've read Archie Comics like I have, you'll see that the fare is a lot lighter. It's a lot lighter in tone. There's a little bit more humor. Whereas Riverdale, it kind of reminds me of Tim Burton films. It's like what would happen if Tim Burton decided to adapt Archie Comics. This is what Riverdale really reminds me of. Now, the pilot episode opens with the mystery over the death of Jason Blossom, the one of the characters who was ancillary in the Archie universe, and the mystery of not finding his body. And from there, everything starts to, they start introducing the characters of, I think, Betty and Kevin Keller, and then they introduce Veronica and her mother, and Archie as well, and then we have Betty trying to figure out how she's going to try to have this relationship with Archie or state her feelings for Archie. She's talking to Kevin Keller about that. Then we have Veronica Lodge coming in with her mother, and then we have Archie and his dad, coming in, and they do a very good job of introducing the characters, introducing their mission, who they are, what they want, and why we should care. And one of the things I really like is the way they do Jughead. Jughead he's like the narrator, but he's like an enigma. He's just around, floating around, like an observer, and we see what he sees, and it kind of tells the story going on. And again, they do a very good job of adapting the source material and translating it for the screen. Because when I look at this drama, I see a lot of old school Archie mixed in with modern Archie, and it all comes together to tell a very cohesive story, which again stays very true to the spirit of Archie Comics and the Archie Comics characters. And it's a very strong story, all these different storylines going on and this mystery. And we really get to see the characters, interacting the way they should interact, like they do in Archie Comics. And when I look at Riverdale, the production values, again, they really help add to this because production values on this show are almost cinematic. The camera work is beautiful, cinematography is beautiful, and the acting is very strong. So the show overall in the pilot, it looks really, really strong, and it's got a distinct feel that, has that Archie spirit, but has its own vibe in and of itself. And that's what makes it a very strong pilot. I'm hoping that they can carry this momentum on into the season because this is looking like one of the stronger adaptations of a comic book. I mean, I've seen some strong stuff over the years. CW Supergirl was very strong. The Marvel Studios films are very strong. And this one, it looks like it could pretty much compete with Marvel Studios as I see it when it comes down to production values because it's a really strong adaptation. And I look at The Archie comics. A lot of people, they discount Archie's because they think it's kid stuff, but this really takes it into the 21st century and shows us what's really special about Archie as a character and what's special about his world. And I really like the way Archie Andrews is handled in Riverdale because in Riverdale we're seeing a boy who is working on trying to become a man, and this adaptation of Archie isn't as simpish or as you know gaga over Veronica Lost to the point where he's willing to sacrifice his dignity. This is kind of a guy who's trying to figure out what type of man he wants to be, what type of goals he wants to achieve in life, and he's looking for a way to have a life outside of this Riverdale, which he believes is a dead end town. And I like seeing that because it's a nice fresh take on Archie, rather than having him be this girl crazy guy like he is in the comics. He's more of a guy trying to be a man and become his own man. And I like seeing that relationship between him and his father because um, that's something we really don't get to see when it comes down to male characters. We really don't get to see, you know, the chance of a man interacting with another man and learning how to be a man from a man. We don't see that, and that's just one of those parts of the storyline I really like, is that Archie Andrews is focusing on trying to learn how to become a man and focusing on things like his music and trying to discover his own identity and going into the football, and he's trying to find things that will connect him to his masculinity and his male identity. I really like that about the Archie character. I really like what they're doing there. And I also like what they did with Betty. Instead of making her just this clean cut girl next door, showing that she has this family that's a little bit darker and has this mother who is really twisted. And I really like what they do with Veronica Lodge as well. They gave her a little bit more depth to her character, showing how her mother was trying to get away from the father, and that was really great too. I mean, the Hiram Lodge character, he's always been shown as a very angry kind of guy in the comics, but they kind of take it to another level in Riverdale, and that's a really great thing to see too. Um, there are other things that I really liked about Riverdale was again, the way the characters are presented, because again they present those characters and they are very true to who they are. And as a guy who has read, you know, dozens of Archie digests and double digests, um, I can honestly say that they are very true to who they are. Now, there's a couple things I didn't like about Riverdale, but I'll get into that in a minute. But there are other things that I did like as well. I like you know, the heavy references to Archie history and the heavy continuity, and there were things that if you're not an old school Archie fan, you're not going to be really able to pick up on. The reference to Pep, which was the comic that Archie made his first appearance on the sign. The reference to Polly, Betty's sister from the comics, and little stuff like the bow tie he had on at the dance. That was just great to see. I mean, that was a reference to that 1950s iconic Archie outfit. It's those little nuances that really made the show strong, and I love seeing all that little stuff and these little nuances to detail. The way they focused the makeup and the things, they literally, the Archie character, they looked like Archie characters came to life. The way they had focused on the lighting on the eyes and everything. I mean, there's just so much to like about Riverdale, production wise, writing wise, acting wise. But there are only a handful of things I have to nitpick about. And the one thing that I really do not like about Riverdale was the shoehorned diversity. Now, when it came down to Pop Tate being black and Josie and the Pussycats being black, I thought that really crossed a line. You know, because with these characters, I don't really want to see diversity. I want the show was doing so great, but then they have to shoehorn this diversity in, making characters black when they did not need to be black. Especially when you understand that Archie has black characters already, like Chuck Clayton and Nancy. I'd rather have them do a storyline with Chuck Clayton and Nancy than try to shoehorn diversity onto characters that don't need to be diverse, because you already had, you had Kevin Keller, you have looks like Big Moose being gay, and then you have them trying to shoehorn diversity in a place where it doesn't need to be. I mean, if these characters were white, leave them white, and then use the black characters you already have, like Chuck Clayton and Nancy. There's no need to try to shoehorn diversity on a show like Riverdale, and I'm really getting tired of seeing people shoehorning diversity where it doesn't belong. I mean, it really takes away from the story. And as a black creator, I really don't like it because if somebody were to say adapt one of my stories like Isis or one of the Isis series books or The Temptation of John Haynes, they could come in and say, you know, you don't have enough white characters in this show, you don't have enough Hispanic characters in this show, and they're going to go and try to change a character that I designed to be black for a reason, all in the name of diversity. And it works two ways on the street. And as I see it, you know, I wouldn't want somebody taking my characters and changing their ethnicity because it's going to change the story. And I feel that when you take characters like Josie and the Pussycats and you change them to black characters, it changes their story. Same thing with Pop Tate. It changes his story as it relates to the Archieverse and the Archie comics universe. When you have characters, they have to stay true to who they are, and that's going to make the adaptation, you know, strong. And this is what this is really, is an adaptation. But as I see it, if you want to give people the most authentic experience, you have to stay as true as the source material as you can. And I do not like this whole push for diversity by taking, you know, characters that were white and then trying to turn them black, because it really ruins the show. Because in many cases, the characters aren't handled well, like I've seen with James Olsen on Supergirl this season. You know, they have not really done much with that character, and he's really bumbled and stumbled throughout later on in the first season. And then in this season, he's just not getting the development he's getting. And this is something I really don't like about diversity characters. They don't really mesh well organically into a story. And when you have a story, you know, you want all the characters to mesh well so that the story can flow. Now, if you want to add black characters in, you bring a black character in and you write a good, well done original black character. Or you take a character like a Chuck Clayton or a Nancy and you fit it in. And the way they could have done that in, again, was with the football. And now it would have worked very nicely. But then they had to go, do it this way. And the diversity just doesn't really fit too well. Now, the other issue I have with Riverdale is all of the broken homes. Now, in the comics, it comes from a lot of the parent homes are two-parent homes, and a lot of the homes are functional. But in this series, we see a lot of dysfunction in the families. We see, you know, Veronica Lodge her family is broken by divorce. Archie's family is broken, and you know, I really didn't like seeing that, because one of the things that makes Archie great is that you have all these families that are functional and they're two-parent households, and we really didn't get to see that in the show. And I think it would have added for a different dynamic, but it adds some sort of grit to it, so there's a positive to it. Now, my biggest issue with Riverdale was the adaptation of Miss Grundy. Now, it looks like they're trying to imply that Archie was having some sort of relationship or sexual relationship with Miss Grundy, and that really turned me off. I mean, yes, I know the Miss Grundy character is an old lady in the comics, and they wanted to turn her into some sort of MILF character, but this is just, it's really sleazy as I see it, and it has like a little sleazy element to the Archie character, and it really, you know, really makes for a real tacky part on the part of the Miss Grundy character. It's like you're trying to turn Miss Grundy into a pedophile, and that's really creepy as I see it when it comes down to that version of Miss Grundy. And I also feel that, you know, yeah, you want to say that, you know, Archie has these feelings and hormones and stuff, but this is just, it just seems a little exploitive when I think about it. Oh, but overall, I look at this Riverdale show, and again, in spite of all those issues I have with the show, there's a lot to see here. There's a lot I like seeing here, and I would say, you know, and it's great to invest a season in, and I'm gonna continue watching this show. I'm hoping everybody else continues to watch the show, because it's a great show. It's a great adaptation of Archie comics for the television screen, and it does an amazing job of bringing these characters to life for the audience for the 21st century. Riverdale comes on the CW, so if you have that network in your cable package or your local package, I urge you to go take a look at it because it's a great show to watch and it's a great time to be a comic fan because there's so many great comic shows on out there, and this is one of the best as I see so far.